Ora si registrerà la conferenza.
Blade, which is a very particular mallet tips that allows you to cut off all the calcified ligaments between the root and the bone. In this case, we go side by side, mesial and distal, all around the root. We also have the ability to go palatal to cut off the ligament. And of course, a very important tip is to not to go in any time on the buccal side, because as we know, the buccal bone plate is very thin, so we don't want to cut off and destroy that important part of the socket. So as you can see, I'm just going very gently, side by side, cutting off the ligament. I hope it is seen in a good quality, because we have a little slowdown of the connection here in Italy. So in this way, we can create a little space, provide a little space for the root, so we will be able, sorry, to have room enough to try to extract the root. As you can see now that the root is has a little mobility. I'm getting the forceps. I grab solidly the root and I start to move all around. Trust me, it was a very stocked root, and I was concerned about the fracture of the root. As you can see, the socket is completely preserved, and the root it has a complete integrity of this body. So Andrea is asking me, compared to a manual hammer, what is the feeling for the patient? Because the sensation of kick is present. Of course, this is a very good point, Andre. And the mallet has a very faster heat, and the patient is not able to feel the heat, so to feel the shock. So you provide much more intense of force instead of a very faster kick. So this provides you much more effort of the procedure. So trust me, it is much more smooth instead of the manual hammer. Instead of the piezo, well, it's a different situation, because you can use side by side the piezo surgery, and we will see some imaging after in the second part to get the mallet work easier. About the frequency, you have only one frequency. You have different forces, and it depends on what you are next to do. In this case, for cut off the calcified ligament, I used the force 1, and trust me, I used the force 4 just once or twice in all my practice, because it is very effort, this kind of instrument. So after we extract the root, we have room and space to provide an implant socket, an implant site, by using the dedicated tip, because this socket was very deep, and I was needing to insert an implant. I wanted to insert an implant. So I just increase the diameter of the tip, and I'm starting to provide what we call osteodensification, without heating, without drilling. So we don't have any kind of bone loss, and without any trauma, any kind of bad treatment of the bone. And this is the final RX, and you can see we just earn some apical millimeters to engage the fixture that we were next to place. Of course, and in this moment is even more important, this kind of procedure do not provide any kind of aerosol, because we do not have turbines, we do not have a handpiece with rotating drills with water or compressed air. So this is a 1 point plus to this kind of technique and this kind of instrument. Okay, this is a short, very nice case that we had with this young girl, very nice girl, and she had this upper lateral that was dyschromic, and it was completely disaligned with all the rest of the other teeth. So we decided to try to blinch it out from an internal bleaching, and then providing an orthodontic alignment. But during the during the blinching, unfortunately, the root went under a fracture. So I tried to reconstruct it with fiber post, but even providing a bio-PT vertical prosthetic preparation, that was the final result that we had, and it was very bad. I went too deep with the preparation, so the soft tissue started to get healed, to get inflamed. So we decided to extract this root and place an immediate implant with an immediate load. So Wojciech, I hope it is a correct saying of the name, is asking me, I think this is just a different instrument, like having a car for the family, for the track and for off-road. Of course, this is a different instrument, but as every instrument, it provides a different way of approach surgery, and provides, I think, different advantages. And you can also use for different purposes, and we will see next in the presentation. So we were saying, we pulled out the root and we placed the implant. So as I just said, no drill, no heat, no bone loss, and no aerosol at all. And this is what happened. We have an osteocondensation provided by the heat of the handpiece. And this provides us a better type of bone tissue. And this is the situation after the placement of the temporary. This is just after the surgery. Stability was very high because we reached even 70 to 80 Newton centimeter torque, and that's the healing. Sorry, that's the healing, the final healing. Just 2 weeks after. Why? Because we didn't elevate any flap, we didn't cut even a cell of soft tissue. So the healing had all the free way to make his own job. And this is the situation. Oops, sorry. Give me 1 second. I bring you back the slide. Okay. This is the final situation after 4 months of healing. So I guess that all of us should pray and ask for this kind of healing after a dramatic surgery and so intense surgery on aesthetic zone in a very beauty young woman. So Dr. Med, Daniel Domic asking me, before placing the implant, you don't use any implant burr, but you prepare implant bed only with magnetic mallet. Of course, that's the real secret. We don't want to lose any cell of bone tissue. So we have dedicated tips for prepare the implant socket when we screw in the implant, using the implant like a final fixture, you know, sorry, like a final burr. So you just screw the implant in, and that's it. We don't want to lose anything. We want to preserve all the bone tissue. And this is the situation of the soft tissue without the screw temporary after 4 months of healing. So in this case, like Andres is asking me, in aesthetic zone, do you complete procedure with the CTG in the same time? Well, it depends. It depends case by case. In this case, I didn't want it to be so invasive for the compliance of the patient, and maybe it will have to be necessary in the long term a soft tissue graft. But the patient was very happy because she didn't felt anything. The procedure was so fast, so clean, so net. So I think that the compromise at the end of the game was completely excellent for me and for the patient. So I'm going to show you very fast. This is an incredible imaging that I love, where you can see the connective tissue that join the epithelium in this transmucosal flash. That's the type of healing that I would like to see all the time that I do perform prosthetic implants. So this is just an overview around the final restoration with a ceramic zirconium crown, with a metal abutment, or titanium abutment, no problem of aesthetic gain at the end of the game. This is the abutment try-in, buccal side, occlusal side, and this is the final delivery of the restoration. So, of course, in a very high position, we had a little depression of the soft tissue, but it is very far away from the smile line, from the smile seenable site. So about the question that asked me, I guess, Andre, yeah, maybe for a book exposure of this case, it will have to be necessary to place a little graft of soft tissue under that apical gingiva zone. But as I repeat, at the end of this job, you see that the parabola and the zenith of the parabola, it's quite symmetrical with the other incisor, lateral incisor. So you see how the soft tissue embrace the final restoration. We have a very mimetic assemblement of all the soft tissue and the hard tissue. And after 1 year, you can see how the papilla has grown down, following the shape that the dental technician gave us to the crown. And also the translucency, the shade of the color are quite good, I guess. So those are daily cases. This is not a symposium, a book exposure cases. I want to show you something that it's quite affordable all the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Whenever you get to your clinic, to your practice, you can gain those kind of results in a very simple way. Not all of us are able to manage a palatal graft, soft tissue graft and make it going okay in a very good in aesthetic case like this. So I need to believe that this kind of procedure can be performed by the majority of the surgeons that are watching this kind of presentation. And this is the final situation. The patient was very, very happy with that. Of course, this is not perfect 100.1%, but it is 95% perfect. I think this is a result that I would like to reach every day and every case that I do practice. Especially if you take in side by side from the beginning of the situation. This is, I guess, a really good result. So tell me in the chat what you think about it. Express your opinion. Don't be shy. Go on. I really like to interact with you. This is the meaning of this kind of webinar. So, as I just said, Daniel Domic asks us, what is the difference of the diameter of your final magnetic mallet instrument and your implant? Or in other words, if you want to install a regular platform implant 4.3, what is the diameter of the magnetic mallet instrument? This is a really interesting question because we're talking about immediate loading. I used a conical implant, so of course, as Summer teaches us, if you want to place a conical implant or you want to reach high torque of implant insertion, we have to prepare the implant side, maybe with the drills, a smaller diameter of drills, and also with the mallet, with the tips of the mallet. You need to use a little bit small diameter of the tip. Okay. Okay, one little more case. Now we are about at the half of the webinar, so we have a temporal time point. This is another case of my cousin. I will go a little bit faster here because we don't have so much time, and we have much more cases I would like to show you. In this case, we had an implant placement after tooth extraction. The implant was placed in about 3 minutes in a flapless condition. Then we had the color shade relevation. And after that, I placed a temporary, and after maybe 1 or 2 months of implant screwed placement, temporary screwed temporary placement, this was the situation. My cousins went to holiday to United States, then she came back, and unfortunately she had a tooth fracture of the second premolar, as you can see here. So in that appointment, we didn't know about that. So we had to manage very fast and as clear as possible this situation. So we decided to extract the root, place the final restoration on the first premolar, use the screwed temporary that was on this first premolar, and place it on the implant, place it in the fresh socket of the extraction of the second premolar. We just customized a little bit the temporary, and that was the situation after the surgery. So the surgery was very clear. We also had a little elevation of the sinus floor with dedicated tips, and also the shape of the implant allows us not to scratch or cut off the sinus membrane. So, this was not okay. Okay, let's go over. So this was the situation after 3 months of healing. So we removed the screwed temporary, and that was the soft tissue healing. As you can see, we maintained all the thickness of the soft tissue, And then we just moved on, very simple, with an open tray impression. And now we're waiting to deliver the final restoration of the second premolar. So even in flapless technique, magnetic mallet really cover a very important rules, because you have only one hand that is pointing the tip and the end piece, and with the other hands you can control the direction and the way the shot it is performed. So as you can see here, I'm going deeper in the bone crest in a very gentle way. We don't have any kind of increasing of the temperature of the bone. I'm waiting for a plastic deformation of the bone, then I unscrew out the first tip. I always checked with the probe, of course, like if I would perform a flapless technique with the burrs, but in this case, the probe is always needed. And we had an horizontal bone expansion, little expansion, but how much we needed to place this implant with a very high torque of stability and a very good maintenance of the soft tissue, which is a very important key to the final success of our restoration. In this little video, you see how does it work, the osteocondensation provided by the mallet osteotomes. You can see how change the structure, the texture of the alveolar bone, and how the change of the situation is fast and simple provided by this kind of device. Okay, one more aesthetic case is with this woman that had a bad accident with his nephew, that jumping on the bed cracked out the crown of his first upper left incisor. So we decided to extract the root, and it was impossible to do it with the forceps because the crown collapsed, and that was the situation. So we passed it to mallet with the blades, and we provided a very smooth and gentle extraction. And this is the socket. You can see the socket, and in this picture you also see the new bed for the implant, the new socket for the implant, which obviously it is palatable instead of maintaining a good result of aesthetic in the final restoration. So after that, we insert the implant in the desired position. We engage the nasal floor as an extra torque stability. This is a 15mm implant, so it is very performant in this kind of situation. Of course, we also use the better temporary of the word, the patient tooth. We made it a hole inside, and we use it as a screw-head temporary, just relining it with some flow composite just above the technician copy of the implant. And this was the situation with the final RX, with the temporary screwed in. And of course, you're asking yourself, okay, where is the final situation? This is the final situation, where we can see that all the soft tissue around the screwed temporary is completely preserved. Nothing has been erased, nothing has been elevated, sorry. We did not provide any any flaps. So of course all the papillae all the gingival architecture will remain as quiet as possible. And this is 10 days after the healing. Unfortunately, this case has been performed just some days before the quarantine. So now we're waiting to see the patient for provide the final restoration. But if we will hear each other in the next future, I think I will be able to show you how went all the restoration. Okay, this is a little video about a bone horizontal expansion where we have a 3.65 millimeter thickness of the initial crest. As you can see, I used the thinnest tip of the mallet to go in inside the crest, just in a blind situation, but very easily, because the tip is very thin and can increase the thickness of the bone inside. As you can see, I do increase the diameter of the tips. We have different tips, all very well explained in the manual, and you also have a laser marks on the tip, so you know every time what deepness you're reaching during this procedure. As Wojciech is asking me, which power level do you use in the maxilla usually? Well, I start with force 1, and I see and I feel what kind of resistance the bone I'm hitting can provide. After that, I can increase the power, and I can go even deeper. But as I said, I never used, I do not use force upper than 2 or 3 intensity of the force. We also have an end piece that has, which is called plus, which has a 30% more provided power. So for whom needs to be very aggressive in this kind of procedure, well, you can ask for the plus handpiece and go big for it. In this case, we place the implant with a very high torque, and this is the final situation. We had an increase of 2 times the thickness that was in the beginning. We had 6 millimeter expansion of the bone. So this is quite simple to achieve as a concept for a single unit. When we have a little bit difficult case like this one, where we had a patient wanted to rehab all the arches, and so we decided to provide an all-on-4 with the leg implant, because there was needed a quite an important expansion. So this require a little bit of skillness in your hands, because as you can see, we have the beginning of little fracture. That fracture remains, and they heal like natural fractures of all the bone inside the human body. We also has the protection of the periosteum, and this expansion was quite easy. Of course, I guess that in my hand should be, but I think that even a new performer of this kind of procedure will not find so hard difficult to perform those kind of procedure. You can see how clean and how net is the precision of those osteotomes with the marks, laser marks, that allows you to know in every moment, in every situation, of what kind of depth you're reaching during the procedure. You also have the possibility to use the double banded insert that allows you to reach the deepest point of the mouth. This is the final suture, and now you can see the final OPG with the scrolling of the initial CTB scan. You see how thick, how thin was the bone crest in the beginning. Now you can see after the implant placement how the implants are in the bone, in their own bed, sleeping well, waiting to be awake after 3 months or 4 months of healing. And in this coronal section, you see how all the anatomical structure was respected after the surgery. And this is the situation. You see also here we can double up the thickness of the crest just by using one only instrument. And I will repeat till I get boring. No heating, no bone lossing, no aerosol, no trauma. This is very important. Okay, let's have a little brief across the split crest, which is a very high skillness procedure that requires a very well knowing of the anatomy of the bone and a very well knowing of the instrument you're using and a very well knowing of what can go wrong in this kind of situation. So we started drawing the cut line with the blades. We placed some position pins. We started to open up the bone crest. The bone buccal plate started to move. Then we placed the implant that provided the final volume of the desired bone expansion. And of course, as I always do with the split crest, I also provided some little bone incrementation with heterologous bone, because I know that in this kind of situation some bone resorption always take place. So I just give a little bit of help to this situation with the membrane over that, and this is the RX at the end of the surgery. And of course, this is the healing after 2 weeks, and we can see how much the crest has gone increased, how much the thickness has changed instead of our surgery. One of the very important part of this kind of procedure is always have a very good drawing of the lines, of the splitting lines, of the piece of bone that you are going to move out from the crest. So using the blade, this is possible to do it very clearly, in a very precise way. And of course, if you want to use the piezo surgery to provide those kind of line of cut, you can do it. This is not denied. If you have the possibility to use the piezo surgery instrument, why not? If you have there and you want to use it, why not? I suggest you to use it. Go ahead. This is a synergy of two instruments. So it's like when you make a sinus elevation. I love to create the access to the sinus with the lateral approach with the piezo surgery instrument, and then I provide the insertion of the implant with the burst. So there is no limit to this. The magnetic mallet needs to be an instrument that increase your predictability, the predictability of your surgery and your procedure. And it is an instrument that can do it in a very easy way. Okay, just a drop of water because my throat is going to be very sore. Let's have one last keep of eye about the sinusal floor elevation. There are many articles in literature that tell us how predictable and how simple is this kind of procedure. And the mallet has a very central position about this kind of procedure. As you can see, in this case, we have an initial situation of about 6 to 7 millimeter of bone crest, residual bone crest. So we wanted to place a 10 millimeter length implant, and just by using the mallet and just by providing a very gentle elevation, we create the access inside the sinus until we reach the desired elevation we were looking for. So this is the implant placed with the elevated sinus membrane. As you can see by the lines, we have the red line that was the old floor of the sinus. We have the pink line that indicate the all the elevation that the sinus membrane reached just by the pushing of the biomaterial inside this new socket that we created by using the mallet. In this kind of RX is appreciable with the light blue line, the little piece of sinus floor that had been cracked out and displaced all the way through up the sinus by the mallet and by the pushing of the biomaterials. After 5 months, you can see how clear is the healing of this surgery, where the bone graft has been completely integrated by the bone crest, by the maxilla bone. We see the white line, and we see how the old floor, represented by the red line, is almost completely undetectable now, and we see the pink line that was the maximum elevation of the membrane now identify the new sinusal floor. And we also see the bone graft how is completely mimetized with the native bone. So one question from Daniel Domic: do you use any additional bone augmentation material for transcrestal sinus lift, or you only condense the bone? Well, actually, we have two different two different way of approaching this kind of situation. I don't want to be too long about this because we can speak 1 more hour about that. In my opinion, it is a better idea to place some biomaterial with a very long-term resorbment, because I don't want the new bone to collapse again, if it is a native bone, to collapse again above the implant apex. So I want my bone to remain stable in the time, instead also to a legal reason. If we will have the possibility, I will explain you in another webinar. I hope I answered your question, Daniel. This is another case with a very extended sinus, in this case of a canine fracture, crown fracture, where we had a bone extraction, root extraction, of course, by using the mallet. So you can see how preserved is the socket after this extraction. Then we filled all the socket apex cavity with the biomaterial. Then we use the biomaterial as a pushing body to crack the sinus floor and start to go in. Of course, it's very important to maintain the tips always at the same working measure. You do not have to push the insert inside the sinus. Okay, this is very, very, very important. This provides for the 95% of the cases the sinus scratching or the sinus cutting. So this will transform your crestal elevation in a bad way as just an injection of biomaterial inside the sinus, which is not what we desire. So using the laser mark, we always know how deep we are going with the tips. In this case, as one of you asked me before, I grafted some soft tissue by the tuberosity, and we will socket it under the flap to increase the soft tissue healing and also to have a closure by first intention of the socket. This is the final suturing, and this is the situation after the surgery. You can see how the bone has been displaced by the sinus shape all around the sinus floor, and how the sinus has been displaced by the biomaterial. So we had the ability to place a 10 millimeter length implant all the way we desired, and in place that we were looking for. And this is the final healing after 5 months. As we saw before, in the case before, you see how the biomaterial completely integrate himself with the native bone. Okay, this is a little extreme case where we had just about 2 or 3 millimeter of bone residual crest. So, by the way, here is suggested, especially for who is not so skilled in this kind of procedure, to go for a lateral approach, okay? But in this case, even if we had a perforation by approaching with the transcrestal way, we had be able to go bilateral at the same time. So we had a sort of parachute. But we wanted to try to accept this challenge, and so I started to insert the bone after creating an access, always using the mallet, and then I placed the implant. As you can see here, this was the initial crest, 2 millimeter. We placed an 8 millimeter length implant for 5 millimeter diameter. And this is all the result that we had. This is about 11 millimeter increase. So I think that providing a 9-10 millimeter elevation of the sinus membrane by crestal approach should be nowadays a reality, should not be just a dream. And you can all imagine what kind of post-operative time the patient have, not like a lateral approach. So this is the shape we had of the elevation of the biomaterial, 15 Newton torque, and this is the 5-month healing. Of course, the bone is completely integrated with the native bone. And this is the final restoration 1 year after. you see how stable is this kind of result. Okay, we are almost in the final part, so I just want to share with you this new insert that will allow you to manage and place in complete safe and in complete comfort the pins that I think all of you love, like me, for stabilize the membrane. And you should ask Claudio De Giglio and the Osseotouch company to provide and sell it as soon as possible, because unfortunately this is just a prototype. So I wait, as a friend of mine that really loves pins, this tip to be sold as soon as possible. Okay, let's have a little conclusion. But we have a question from Andrea. Can you explain the useful of magnetic mallet in very dense bone like mandibular zone? What is your protocol of insert implant on mandible? This is a great question, Andrea. Thank you very much for asking me, because we are talking about bone manipulating, osteodensification of the bone. Of course, the mandible bone, it's very hard, it's very corticalized. So deformation of that bone, it's very hard to provide. You need to be very skillful, and the application for the mandible are just split crest in a very rare cases and extraction. Of course, you don't need any kind of osteodensification in mandible, because you already have a really good quality of bone. Thank you very much, Andre. This is a good point to underline and to remind to all the participants. I hope you're okay with my answer. Now, the conclusion: how could magnetic mallet improve my daily practice? We don't have not many pieces. It is easy to use. We can improve our time of working because it is very fast. Of course, it is safe because we don't have any cut, we don't have any heat, we can modulate the different forces. It is very intuitive because even a new surgeon that has a new approach to this instrument can learn very fast and very easy to use it in almost every situation and application. Of course, it is painless because we don't have brushing, we don't have cutting, we don't have eating, and also all the shocks are very fast, and the patient really do not feel so much this kind of discomfort. So it is comfortable because we have a low transmittance of the forces. Of course, increase the performances because we have bone augmentation without GBR. So we also have no expensive losing of money. We have osteodensification. We have a high torque, and it is very important for the immediate load. Of course, it is predictable because you see how linear are the procedure, how fast they are, and how the results are clear, how the results are net. So we know all the dimension and all the diameters of the tips and of the osteotomes, and we also have laser masks. I mean, you have everything you need to know what you're doing, where you're doing, and where you are doing. Of course, it is repeatable because all the procedures are not once in a life, and they're not an artistic composement. You can always repeat the procedure because there are protocols. We are now drawing down a very precise protocols, especially for the sinus elevation of bicrestal approach, and it is also quite cheap as compared to many other instruments. So after that, I really like to thank you all. Those are my contacts. I am on LinkedIn. If you want to join me and ask for everything, I'm at your disposal. Don't be afraid. You won't disturb me anytime. Whenever I can, I will be very glad and honored to answer to all your questions. You also have my mail. Of course, you find a very big list of courses and formation and information about the magnetic mallet on the Osseotouch company site web. So go there, just click it, and if you have any question, also go to the contact list and mail them. They will be glad to answer all your doubt. So I would like to thank you all. It's been very fast and very intense, this kind of new way of sharing all this information. I want to say thank you to Carlos Sandi, Guy Slick, Claudio De Giglio, all the participants, all the nation connected guys. You've been amazing, and I really hope that we will be able to hear ourselves as soon as possible. If you like this kind of webinar, please push like, mega like, and giga likes. Don't be afraid, and ask for more of those webinars. I will be glad to provide you, and of course also Osseotouch and Claudio would be honored to be